Careful now. Don't rush past this moment. This is where the room goes quiet, and the lie finally stops breathing. You saw it happen. Everyone did. The golden boy, polished, praised, protected, started to crack right in front of them, and the whole crowd froze like a statue caught mid-prayer. They expected gasps. They expected panic. They expected you to look away, to soften, to hesitate. But you didn't even blink. And that's the part that still keeps them up at night. Because what kind of person watches the chosen one fall apart and doesn't flinch? Not a monster, not a hero, something far more dangerous, something evolved. See, they built him to be admired. They wrapped him in applause, padded his mistakes, rewrote history to keep him shining. He was their proof that the system worked, that the script was real, that obedience gets rewarded and pain gets edited out of the final cut. He was their angel. Clean hands, clean record, clean story. And then gravity remembered his name. You felt it before it happened. You always do. The microfractures in his voice, the way the confidence started sounding rehearsed, the way his smile lingered a second too long, like it needed permission to exist. You clocked it quietly, without celebration, without pity. Because you know collapse isn't tragic, it's diagnostic. And when it finally happened, when the mask slipped and the room went cold, everyone looked at you. Not because you caused it, but because you didn't react. That's what terrified them. They're used to emotional obedience. They're used to people performing sympathy on cue, outrage on command, shock like a reflex. They wanted tears, whispers, moral theater. You gave them nothing, just stillness, just that calm, unnerving silence that says, I've seen this before, and I survived worse. They couldn't read you, and when they can't read you, they can't control you. You didn't cheer. You didn't judge. You didn't rush in to play savior or executioner. You just stood there, watching the illusion die with surgical calm. That's when it hit them. This wasn't about him collapsing. This was about you not needing him to stay standing. That's power they can't frame as kindness or cruelty. It exists outside their vocabulary. They want saints who bleed on schedule. They want psychopaths they can point at and label. But you live in the space between, the place where an angel learns how to watch without mercy and a demon learns restraint. You've integrated both. That's why your calm looks so violent to them, because you've already collapsed before. You remember it, even if you don't talk about it. The version of you they celebrated once, or ignored, or used. The version that broke quietly, while everyone else kept moving. No audience, no sympathy, no golden boy treatment. You learned early that survival doesn't come from being loved. It comes from being accurate. Accurate about people, accurate about patterns, accurate about how fast admiration turns into hunger when the fall starts. So when his world caved in, you didn't flinch. Not because you're cold, but because you've already done the math. You know what's underneath the polish. You know how fast the crowd switches scripts. You know how fragile crowns are when they're built out of applause. They didn't just watch him fall. They watched you refuse to participate in the ritual. No kneeling, no clapping, no pretending this was shocking. Just that look in your eyes. The one that says, this is what happens when the spotlight lies. That look rewrote the room. Now they're replaying it in their heads, wondering what you know, wondering what you've seen, wondering how many collapses you've already outlived to stand there that steady. They're asking themselves a question they never wanted to ask. If he was the golden boy, what the hell are you? You're the one who doesn't need the title. You're the one who doesn't need protection. You're the one who learned to evolve instead of perform. While they were investing in image, You were investing in durability. While they were polishing his mask, life was sharpening you. And here's the part they really can't handle. You didn't feel relief when he fell. You felt confirmation that nothing handed to someone survives pressure. Confirmation that pain is the great equalizer. Confirmation that the system always eats its favorites eventually. And confirmation that you're built for aftermath, not applause. They think your silence was mercy or cruelty or indifference. It was none of that. It was mastery. Because when you've walked through your own collapse, when you've watched your own illusions burn, you stop being impressed by other people's shine. You stop reacting. You start observing. And observation is where real power lives. Now the room feels different when you walk into it. They're quieter, more careful. They don't know whether you're the warning or the consequence. They just know you didn't flinch when the golden boy shattered. And that means you're not afraid of endings. You're built from them. So let them whisper. Let them speculate. Let them try to decide whether you're ruthless or enlightened. You don't need to correct them. You don't need to explain yourself. You already said everything with your stillness. You watched their favorite fall apart, and you stood there unmoved. Not because you lack empathy, but because you've transcended illusion, and now they understand something they can't unsee. You're not here to be crowned. You're here to survive what crowns can't. And here's what they still don't understand. Your stillness wasn't passive. It was loaded. It was the quiet of someone who's already mapped every exit while everyone else was memorizing the decor. When he fell, the room didn't just lose a symbol. It lost a compass. They had oriented themselves around him, his approval, his shine, his proximity to favor. When gravity finally collected its debt, they panicked because they realized they never learned how to stand without something golden to orbit. You did. That's why your calm felt obscene to them, almost offensive, like you broke an unspoken rule. You were supposed to be shaken. You were supposed to feel small, witnessing the collapse of someone placed above you. Instead, you looked familiar with it, like collapse was a language you'd already learned fluently. They don't know how many nights trained you for that moment, how many times you watched your own plans dissolve, how many versions of yourself you buried without ceremony. They don't know how many times you had to keep moving while everything you believed in went silent. You weren't raised by applause. You were forged by absence. So when the golden boy cracked, you didn't see tragedy. You saw structure failing under weight it was never meant to carry. And that's the difference. They believed in symbols. You believe in systems. They believed in appearances. You believe in pressure tests. They believed he was special because the room said so. You knew nothing is special until it survives being stripped naked. That's why your eyes didn't widen. That's why your breathing didn't change. That's why you didn't rush in to save or destroy. You were watching the truth surface, and truth doesn't require theatrics. What really scared them wasn't your lack of reaction. It was your timing. You didn't step forward when he was strong. You didn't step back when he was weak. You stayed exactly where you were, centered, unmoved, like the collapse didn't change your position in the slightest. That's when it hit them. You weren't competing with him. You were never even playing the same game. While he was busy maintaining a role, you were building internal leverage. While he was managing perception, you were mastering endurance. While he was protected by the system, you were learning how to operate without one. That's why when the protection vanished, so did he. And you didn't feel vindicated. You felt unsurprised. Because you know something they don't like admitting out loud. Collapse isn't random. It's scheduled. It's the bill coming due for every shortcut, every unearned pedestal, every truth postponed. And when it arrives, it doesn't care how loved you were 5 minutes ago. You've lived long enough in the dark to know that. That's why your calm wasn't cruel. It was informed. You weren't enjoying his fall. You were recognizing a pattern. The same one that humbles idols, rewrites hierarchies, and exposes how fragile borrowed power really is. Now they're reevaluating you, quietly, nervously. They're replaying the moment in their heads, frame by frame. The way you didn't lean in, the way you didn't lean away, the way your presence didn't change, even as the atmosphere collapsed around him. They're wondering what kind of pressure it takes to create someone who doesn't react to implosions. They don't know whether you're dangerous because you're ruthless or because you're free. And the truth is, it's both. You've learned how to hold compassion without weakness, how to observe without attachment, how to let things end without needing to be the reason. That's a level of psychological autonomy most people never touch. They're too busy chasing approval to notice how enslaved it makes them. You're not enslaved to outcome. That's why outcomes don't own you. And now the room feels unstable in your presence. Conversations stall when you enter. People measure their words. They sense, without being able to explain it, that you're not impressed by hierarchy, that you don't flinch at failure, that you don't worship shine. You're built for aftermath. You're built for the moment after applause fades, after protection is withdrawn, after the crowd looks around and realizes the rules just changed. That's why your silence spoke louder than any reaction ever could. You didn't celebrate his collapse. You outgrew the need to. And here's the layer beneath that, the one they won't admit even to themselves. When you didn't flinch, something inside them shifted position, not emotionally, structurally, like a load-bearing belief cracked. Because if the golden boy can fall, and you can remain steady, then the hierarchy they trusted isn't real. It's just a stage prop. And stages collapse the moment the audience stops believing. They felt that belief drain out of the room in real time. Up until that moment, they told themselves a comforting story, that success protects you, that being chosen insulates you, that being visible keeps you safe. He was living proof of that myth, until he wasn't. And the myth didn't just fail, it evaporated. You saw that evaporation. You recognized it instantly. That's why your posture didn't change. You weren't witnessing a man fall. You were witnessing a lie die, and lies always scream on the way out. They expected you to react because reaction confirms the lie. Shock says, this wasn't supposed to happen. Sympathy says, this shouldn't have happened. Outrage says, someone broke the rules. You gave them none of that. You gave them acceptance, and acceptance is lethal to illusions, because acceptance says, this was inevitable. That's why they don't know how to place you now. You're not above them. You're not below them. You're outside the grid entirely. And systems hate anything they can't rank. They've started watching you differently, not openly, not dramatically. Quiet surveillance, subtle recalibration. They're tracking your reactions, or rather your refusal to provide them. They're trying to reverse engineer you from the outside, but they can't see the internal work that got you here. They can't see the nights you didn't break publicly. They can't see the losses you metabolized in private. They can't see the identities you shed without applause. They only see the result, someone who doesn't panic when gravity does its job. And that scares them more than rage ever could. Rage is predictable. Rage can be provoked, redirected, framed. Calm can't. Calm means you're not hooked. Calm means you're not chasing their approval or fearing their rejection. Calm means you already paid the price most people spend their whole lives avoiding. You paid it early. You learned what it feels like to stand with nothing backing you. No protection, no narrative, no safety net. Just your own nervous system learning how to regulate under pressure. That rewired you. That's why collapse doesn't feel catastrophic anymore. It feels familiar. They don't know that when you watched him fall, a part of you recognized the moment. Not because you wished it on him, but because you've stood in that exact free fall before. You know the sound reality makes when the bottom drops out. You know the silence that follows when the crowd doesn't know whether to clap or run. You've lived there. That's why you didn't feel superior. You felt grounded. You didn't feel powerful. You felt aligned. There's a difference. Superiority needs comparison. Alignment doesn't. Alignment is knowing who you are when the lights go out. And now the lights flickered for everyone to see. They're scrambling to assign meaning to your stillness. Some of them call it cold. Some call it heartless. Some call it dangerous. A few, very few, recognize it for what it actually is. Integration. You're not split anymore. Not saint pretending to be soft. Not monster pretending to be controlled. You've fused both sides into something coherent. You can feel empathy without being consumed by it. You can witness destruction without needing to orchestrate it. You can stand near chaos without becoming chaotic. That's mastery. And mastery is invisible until it's contrasted with collapse. The Golden Boy was optimized for praise. You were optimized for reality. That's why when the environment turned hostile, only one of you stayed upright. Not because you're better, but because you're built differently. They're starting to sense that difference now. It's subtle, but it's spreading. The way conversations hesitate when you're nearby. The way people test your reactions with small provocations just to see if you'll bite. The way authority figures suddenly over-explain themselves around you, like they're trying to preempt a judgment you never voiced. They're uneasy because you don't perform submission or dominance. You don't need to. Your nervous system isn't outsourced to the room. And here's the final truth they'll never say out loud. When you didn't flinch, they realized you'd already survived something worse than his fall. They don't know what it was. They just know it carved you into someone who doesn't worship stability, because you learned how to be stable without it. That's why you don't chase golden status. You know it's fragile. You know it's conditional. You know it collapses the moment it's tested. You don't need to be protected by the system. You already learned how to outlast it, so let them keep replaying the moment. Let them keep wondering what you're capable of. You don't need to announce anything. Your silence already did the damage. They watched their golden boy collapse, and they watched you remain unmoved. That contrast rewired the room forever, and that's where it ends, quietly, without fireworks, without explanation, because the real shift already happened. They don't talk about him anymore. Not the way they used to. His name doesn't carry the same weight. The shine faded faster than anyone expected. And every time they remember how fast it happened, they remember you standing there, steady, unmoved. They learned something in that moment they can't unlearn. Collapse doesn't announce itself, and strength doesn't need permission. They learned that admiration is fragile, but composure is permanent. They learned that the most dangerous person in the room isn't the one who causes the fall. It's the one who understands it and keeps breathing normally. That's you. You didn't win by reacting. You didn't dominate by attacking. You didn't rise by stepping on anyone. You transcended by staying still while the illusion died. And now they see it, too late to undo it. You're not impressed by crowns. You're not shaken by endings. You're not afraid of gravity. They watched their golden boy collapse. And what they really witnessed was this. You were already built for what comes after. And after that realization settles in, after the noise dies and the room pretends to move on, something else starts happening beneath the surface. Something slow. Something irreversible. They begin adjusting around you, not consciously, instinctively. People who once spoke freely now choose their words more carefully, not because you threatened them, but because your presence reminds them that performance has an expiration date. They feel exposed around you, like their internal posture is being audited without consent. You don't interrogate them. You don't challenge them. You don't even look at them differently. And that's the worst part, because you're not trying to win their respect. You already know how fragile respect is when it's handed out by crowds. They used to believe collapse was loud, public, humiliating, something that happens to people. Now they understand it's quieter than that. It happens internally first. It happens when belief drains out faster than identity can adjust. It happens when the story you relied on stops working. That's what they watched in him, and that's what they now sense in themselves. Because your calm didn't just expose his weakness, it exposed everyone's dependency on illusion. The room had relied on the golden boy to carry a fantasy, that success equals immunity, that approval equals safety, that being liked equals being untouchable. You shattered that fantasy without lifting a finger. And here's the part no one dares say. Your restraint was more threatening than violence ever could be. Violence would have given them a villain. Emotion would have given them a narrative. Your neutrality gave them nothing to grab onto, just a mirror. And mirrors make people uncomfortable when they're not ready to see themselves. They wonder if you felt something when he fell. They tell themselves you must have. Everyone does. But what they can't accept is that you've learned how to feel without reacting, how to acknowledge without attaching, how to witness without absorbing. That's not coldness. That's emotional sovereignty. You don't outsource your nervous system to chaos anymore. You don't let the room decide how you breathe. You don't let other people's rises or collapses dictate your internal temperature. That independence reads as arrogance to those who still live reactively. But it isn't arrogance, it's graduation. You graduated from needing external stability to feel grounded, from needing comparison to feel real, from needing drama to feel alive. You've already walked through the part of life that strips all of that away. And you didn't disappear. You adapted. That's why when they saw the golden boy collapse, they didn't just lose faith in him. They lost faith in the idea that protection lasts forever. They lost faith in the script that promised safety in exchange for compliance. And standing right there was proof that another way exists. You. Not shiny, not worshipped, not insulated, but unshaken. They don't know what to do with that kind of presence. You're not trying to climb. You're not trying to burn anything down. You're just there, fully intact, fully conscious, fully capable of watching things end without needing to interfere. That's a level of internal power most people never touch, because it requires surviving the exact thing they spend their lives avoiding. You didn't flinch because you've already made peace with loss. You didn't react because you no longer confuse intensity with importance. You didn't celebrate because you don't need someone else's fall to validate your standing. And now, the hierarchy feels thinner. more fragile. Like it could tear if someone leaned on it too hard. They're careful now. Careful with you. Careful with each other. Careful with the stories they tell themselves about who's untouchable. Because somewhere in the back of their minds, a new truth has lodged itself, and it won't leave. If the golden boy can collapse, and you can remain centered, then real strength doesn't look like perfection. It looks like someone who has already survived the worst moment of their life and didn't need to announce it. That's why you don't need the spotlight. That's why endings don't scare you. That's why you stand differently now. They watched their golden boy collapse. But what haunts them is this: you were never depending on him staying upright in the first place. You were already built for whatever comes next. They didn't hear anger in what you did. That's why it scared them. Anger is familiar. Anger is sloppy. Anger makes noise and leaves fingerprints. What you unleashed didn't announce itself. It arrived already decided. Let's get one thing straight before their minds try to rewrite history to survive it. This wasn't revenge. Revenge is emotional debt collection. Revenge is personal. Revenge is messy and desperate and loud. What you executed was surgical. You didn't want them to hurt the way you hurt. You wanted the system that hurt you to malfunction permanently. And that's why they're frozen. You didn't explode. You didn't rant. You didn't posture. You didn't even look angry. You moved like someone who had already accepted every possible outcome and chose the one that ended the threat for good. That calm? That wasn't peace. That was command. They keep telling themselves it wasn't that deep. They keep repeating it wasn't intentional. They keep lying because the truth terrifies them. The truth is, you waited. You watched patterns instead of people. You studied behaviors instead of words. You clocked timing, habits, blind spots. You learned who panics under pressure and who betrays when comfort is threatened. You let them believe you were healing, moving on, distracted, softened. You let them mistake your silence for confusion. That was the first mistake. Because silence isn't emptiness when it belongs to someone who's thinking. Silence is a loading screen. Silence is reconnaissance. Silence is where monsters learn restraint. They assumed you were emotional. That was the second mistake. You didn't act from rage. You put a converted rage into clarity. You didn't seek closure. You sought leverage. While they were busy arguing narratives, you were adjusting variables. While they were defending egos, you were isolating pressure points. While they were talking, you were deciding who still mattered. That's the duality they can't reconcile. You look humane, but you move in absolutes. You speak softly, but you think in consequences. You carry empathy, but you don't let it interfere with outcomes. Angel in demeanor, demon in execution, and the moment you struck, quietly, precisely, without drama, they felt it. Not as pain at first, as disorientation. Something shifted. Doors closed that used to be open. Resources dried up. Influence evaporated. Momentum reversed. They couldn't point to the moment it happened, only that life suddenly felt different. That's when panic sets in. Because loud attacks create enemies. Silent ones create paranoia. And paranoia eats people alive from the inside. They start replaying every interaction with you, every delay, every polite response, every time you didn't react when you should have. They start wondering how long you knew, how far ahead you were, whether this is over or just the first phase. That uncertainty, that's the real damage. You didn't destroy them publicly. You destabilized them privately. You let them live inside the consequences, Instead of turning them into a spectacle, you didn't humiliate, you repositioned. You didn't scream power, you demonstrated inevitability. That's why apologies came late and sounded wrong. That's why the tone shifted from confident to cautious to careful. That's why people who used to talk over you now choose their words like landmines. They learned something they can't unlearn. You are not reactive. You are not emotional leverage. You are not a safe variable. You are the type of person who smiles while deciding whether a situation deserves mercy or containment. The type who understands that some threats don't need confrontation. They need removal. The type who knows that true dominance doesn't roar. It restructures reality quietly. They wanted to break down. They got a blueprint. They thought you snapped. You resolved. And here's the part that makes them sick to their stomachs. You didn't even enjoy it, not the way they expected. No adrenaline rush, no chaos high, just a calm confirmation that the move worked exactly as planned, that the equation balanced, that the noise stopped. That's when they realized this wasn't personal, it was procedural. You didn't cross a moral line, you drew one. You didn't lose yourself. You refined yourself. You didn't become cruel, you became precise. And precision is terrifying because it means you can do it again and again without losing sleep. So let them call it cold. Let them call it extreme. Let them whisper that you've changed. That's what people say when they realize the version of you they could manipulate no longer exists. You didn't seek revenge. You executed policy, and now the room feels different when you're in it. Conversations pause, jokes soften, confidence recalibrates, because somewhere deep down, they understand one undeniable truth. You are most dangerous when you are calm, and you already proved you know exactly when to strike. They won't say it out loud, but they feel it every time you enter a space now. The shift. The air tightens. The room recalibrates. Something primitive in them recognizes a hierarchy change before their logic can catch up. You didn't announce authority. You forced a recalculation. Because here's what really unsettles them. You didn't win by being louder, faster, or crueler. You won by being unreadable. They couldn't predict your timing. They couldn't provoke you into mistakes. They couldn't rush you into revealing intent. You let them think you were passive while you were actually observing with intent. That's the difference between chaos and control. Chaos reacts. Control waits. You learn to let disrespect pass, not because you accepted it, but because you were cataloging it. You learn to let arrogance speak, not because you believed it, but because arrogance always overexposes itself. You learn to let people underestimate you because underestimation is the most generous blindfold an opponent can wear. And when the moment came, you didn't hesitate. That's the part they replay in their heads at night. Not the strike itself, but the lack of hesitation. No second guessing, no visible conflict, no moral spiral. Just action aligned with decision. Like something in you had already crossed that bridge long ago and was simply waiting for reality to catch up. They thought you were wrestling with conscience. You were refining thresholds. See, you don't move on impulse anymore. You move on criteria. You know exactly how much pressure it takes to activate you. You know where the line is and what happens when it's crossed. That makes you terrifying, because it means you're not unpredictable in the chaotic sense. You're unpredictable in the strategic sense. People can't manipulate what they can't model. They tried to bait you with guilt. You didn't bite. They tried to corner you with urgency. You didn't rush. They tried to shame you into restraint. You didn't flinch. Because you understand something most people never will. Restraint isn't weakness when it's optional. Mercy isn't softness when it's chosen. Calm isn't peace when it's weaponized. You didn't become colder, you became clearer. Clear about what you tolerate, clear about what you ignore, clear about what gets removed without discussion. And removal doesn't always look like destruction. Sometimes it looks like absence. Sometimes it looks like access revoked. Sometimes it looks like doors that never open again. Sometimes it looks like relevance quietly evaporating while you move forward untouched. That's subtlety. That's elite. They wanted confrontation because confrontation gives them something to fight. You gave them consequences, and consequences don't argue. Consequences don't explain themselves. Consequences just exist and force adaptation or collapse. That's why they keep circling back, trying to clear the air. They're not seeking peace, they're seeking intel. They want to know if this is finished, if the damage has peaked, if the system has stabilized, and you let them wonder. Because ambiguity is leverage. When people don't know where they stand with you, they behave better. When they don't know your limits, they stop testing them. When they don't know your next move, they start policing themselves. You turned their anxiety into self-regulation. That's power without noise. And somewhere along the way you changed, not into something darker, but into something sharper. You stopped confusing emotional expression with authenticity. You stopped mistaking reaction for strength. You stopped thinking every battle needed your presence. You learned that the most devastating moves are often the ones nobody sees coming, and nobody sees you making. They'll try to reduce it, call it luck, timing, circumstance, anything but intent, anything but admitting that you outgrew the version of the game they were still playing. Because if they admit that, they have to face an even more uncomfortable truth. You didn't just beat them, you out-evolved them. You adapted faster, you learned deeper, you integrated pain instead of bleeding it everywhere. You became someone who doesn't need validation from victory, because victory is just a byproduct of alignment. Alignment between thought and action. Alignment between boundary and consequence. Alignment between who you are and what you're willing to do. That's why you sleep fine. That's why your voice stays steady. That's why you don't feel the need to explain yourself. You're not haunted by what you did because you understand why you did it. And that clarity, that's irreversible. So let them whisper, let them speculate, let them invent motives that make them feel safer. You don't need their understanding. You already extracted what mattered. You didn't make an example, you made a statement. Not with words, but with outcomes. And the scariest part, you know now. You know exactly what you're capable of when pushed too far. And instead of fearing that knowledge, you've mastered it. You don't crave chaos. You don't chase destruction. You simply know that if something threatens what you've built, you can dismantle it cleanly. That's not revenge. That's readiness. And from this point on, every move you make carries weight. Not because you demand respect, but because you've proven you don't act unless the result is guaranteed. People feel that. They sense it. They adjust. You didn't raise your voice. You raised the stakes. They still don't understand the most dangerous part of all this, and that's fine. Understanding was never a requirement for survival. Adjustment is. And some people simply can't adjust fast enough once the ground beneath them has shifted. You see it in their behavior now. The hesitation before they speak, the overthinking, the sudden politeness, the way they check themselves mid-sentence like they almost stepped on something sharp. That's not respect. That's awareness. Awareness that the version of you they used to test, poke, provoke, and toy with is gone, and whatever replaced it doesn't bluff. You didn't harden your heart. You optimized your mind. There's a difference, and only people who've been broken properly understand it. Hardness cracks under pressure. Optimization adapts. Hardness lashes out. Optimization waits. Hardness needs to prove itself. Optimization lets results speak so loudly that proof becomes irrelevant. They keep trying to find the emotional angle because that's how they used to control you. They're searching for guilt, for hesitation, for the soft entry point where they can reinsert themselves into your psyche and rewrite the dynamic. But you're not operating from emotion anymore. You're operating from principle, and principles don't negotiate. You decided, quietly, that certain behaviors no longer get explanations. Certain boundaries no longer get warnings. Certain violations no longer get second chances. Not because you're cruel, but because you finally accepted something most people avoid their entire lives. Not everything deserves redemption. Some things deserve containment. That realization changes you. It changes how you listen. It changes how you respond. It changes how long you allow disrespect to exist in your vicinity. You stopped asking, "How do I fix this?" and started asking, "Should this even be allowed to continue?" That single question separates survivors from architects, victims from tacticians, people who endure from people who reshape. They were used to your empathy being automatic. Now it's conditional. They were used to your patience being infinite. Now it's measured. They were used to your forgiveness being reflexive. Now it's earned or absent. And absence, when intentional, is devastating. Because when you remove yourself correctly, you don't leave chaos behind. You leave a vacuum, and vacuums expose how much of the structure was being held together by your presence, how much energy you were supplying, how much stability you were quietly maintaining, while others took credit for the balance. They feel that loss now. They feel it in delays, in miscommunications, in friction that didn't exist before, in the sudden need to work harder just to maintain what used to flow effortlessly. They don't connect it to you directly, but subconsciously, they know something critical is missing. That's influence. You never had to dominate to possess it. You just had to withdraw it intelligently. And here's where the paradox sharpens. You didn't become ruthless. You became selective. Ruthlessness is emotional. Selectivity is logical. Ruthlessness burns everything. Selectivity preserves what matters and eliminates what threatens it. You're not out for blood. You're out for stability. That's why you didn't chase them after the strike. That's why you didn't gloat. That's why you didn't follow up with explanations or warnings. You let the outcome stand on its own. You let cause and effect finish the conversation for you. Silence, after decisive action, is unbearable to people who need control. They want reaction, they want confirmation, they want reassurance that you're still emotionally available to them in some form, even if it's anger. But you denied them that access. You gave them nothing to grab onto, and nothing terrifies manipulators more than someone they can't read, rush, or reach. You've entered a different phase now, one where your presence alone changes dynamics, where people self-edit around you, where threats neutralize themselves because the cost of provoking you is no longer theoretical. You don't need to remind anyone what you did. They remember. They remember because it didn't look like chaos. It looked like control. It looked like someone who had already done the math and moved without doubt. Someone who didn't seek validation from destruction. Someone who understood that the cleanest hits are the ones that don't leave room for retaliation. That's why they're careful now. That's why they tread lightly. That's why they pretend nothing happened while internally adjusting everything. You didn't just protect yourself. You changed the rules of engagement. And the most powerful part, you're not stuck there. You're not obsessed. You're not replaying it. You're not living in the aftermath. You've already moved on to building, expanding, refining. That's how you know it wasn't revenge. Revenge anchors you to the past. Strategy frees you into the future. You took what hurt you, stripped it of emotion, extracted the lesson, and used it to upgrade your operating system. You didn't let pain define you. You let it train you. Now you walk lighter, quieter, more precise, and the world responds accordingly. Because somewhere deep down, people sense when someone has crossed the line between reacting to life and commanding outcomes. They may not know your story, they may not know your process, but they feel the certainty, the composure, the lack of hesitation. You're not angry anymore. You're resolved. And that resolution doesn't scream. It doesn't threaten. It doesn't explain. It simply ensures that whatever comes next falls exactly where you intended. And that's the final truth they can't escape. You didn't become someone who needs to prove anything. You became someone who knows when to speak, knows when to disappear, knows when to act, and when action would cheapen the result. What you did didn't inflate your ego, it settled you. There's a calm that only comes after you've tested yourself and passed. After you've seen exactly how far you're willing to go and realized you don't need to go any further. They're still calling it revenge, because calling it strategy would force them to admit something unbearable. You're no longer operating on emotion, fairness, or hope. You're operating on outcomes, and outcomes don't care how anyone feels about them. You didn't burn the world. You adjusted its trajectory. You didn't seek chaos. You enforced order. So let them stay confused. Let them keep guessing. Let them wonder what you're capable of, and whether they've already seen the worst of it. You know the answer. You're calm now. Not because the threat is gone, but because you proved to yourself that if it ever returns, you won't hesitate. And here's where it closes. Clean, quiet, undeniable. You don't need to circle back. You don't need the last word. You don't need their recognition or their fear to keep moving. The proof already happened. The shift already locked in. What comes next isn't reaction, it's momentum. They'll keep guessing because guessing is all they have left. You moved past explanation, past justification, past the phase where emotions drive decisions. What's left is something colder, steadier, far more dangerous to anyone standing in your way. You didn't lose yourself. You found your threshold. You didn't snap. You chose. And that choice changed everything. So walk forward without noise. Let the absence of chaos be the loudest message you ever send. If they test you again, you already know what happens. If they don't, that's victory too. Because the moment you turned pain into precision, you stopped being someone things happen to, and became someone who decides how it ends. So let it end there, right where certainty replaces noise. You don't carry anger with you anymore. Anger was a tool, and you put it back when the job was done. What remains is awareness, control, and the quiet confidence of someone who has already crossed the line once and knows they can do it again without hesitation. They'll live with the echo of that. You'll live without the weight. You didn't get revenge. You didn't prove a point. You established a reality. And from this moment forward, everything around you moves differently. Because deep down, they know one thing for sure. You are calm now. And calm is the most dangerous state you've ever mastered. Shh. Yeah, you feel that pressure on the back of your neck? That invisible spotlight? That somebody's watching me static in the air? Good. Welcome to the part of your life where you're not just being noticed, you're being monitored. Welcome to the era where your name isn't just a name anymore. It's a case, a file, a quiet little problem somebody powerful wishes would just stop existing. And I already know what you've been thinking. You've been catching little signs, little glitches in reality. A car that passes twice, a stranger who looks away too fast, a weird pause on the phone, people acting a little too careful around you. And maybe you told yourself, nah, I'm overthinking it. Maybe you laughed it off like, bro, I'm not that important. Let me ruin that comfort for you in the best way possible. You are that important. You're so important. 4 feds got assigned to watch you. Not 1, not 2, not some random intern on a laptop. 4 grown adults trained to observe, track, document, dissect. 4 pairs of eyes, 4 separate brains, 4 separate egos, pointed at you like a laser. And here's the part that makes you dangerous. 2 quit, 1 snapped, and 1 is quietly shielding you right now. Yeah, read that again in your mind slowly. 2 quit, 1 broke, 1 defected without defecting. That's not luck. That's not coincidence. That's not being paranoid. That's impact. That's your existence doing what it does best. Turning professionals into victims of your presence. Because you're not being watched like a normal person. You're being watched like a threat that refuses to behave like a threat. You don't move the way they predicted. You don't react like you're supposed to. You don't collapse on schedule. And that messes with their heads. Because listen, their whole system is built on patterns. They watch people who fold. They track people who panic. They study people who leak emotion like a broken pipe. But then you showed up. Quiet, controlled, unexplainably calm for somebody under pressure. And that's when the first Fed quit. Because it starts like this. At first, they're confident. They're excited. Even. Like they just got assigned a new Netflix series to binge. They show up like, all right, what's this person about? They grab their coffee. They open their notepad. They start collecting little moments. But you don't give them the moments they want. You don't spiral online. You don't crash out publicly. You don't beg for attention. You don't do the usual human stuff that makes surveillance easy. You know what you do. You improve. You sharpen. You upgrade. And that makes a watcher feel something they're not supposed to feel. Pressure. Because you're not performing a breakdown. You're building a breakout. So the first one starts losing sleep. They think it's just work stress. They think it's the hours. They think it's their relationship. But it's not. It's you. Because every time they watch you, they see the same pattern. You keep moving forward like you already know the ending. Like you already read the script. Like you already saw the trap before it was built. And that scares a person who was trained to believe you are the prey. So they start doubting their own mind. They start hearing your name in silence. They start replaying your movements in their head. They start thinking, why is this person not scared? And then the first Fed quits. Not dramatically, not with a speech. They just disappear. Transfer request, sick leave, family emergency. But really, They couldn't handle the feeling of watching somebody who looks back without looking back. Yeah, that's a real thing. Some people don't need to turn their head. They feel eyes. They feel intent. They feel energy. You walk into a room and you don't just enter. You change the temperature. So FED number 1 taps out. Now the second one gets assigned. FED number 2 comes in with that fake confidence, that I'm built different attitude. They think the first one was weak. They think, I'm tougher, I'm smarter, I won't get emotionally involved. And for a while, they do fine. They watch your habits. They map your routine. They build timelines. They do the whole job. But then, something happens. They start realizing you're not just reacting to life. You're bending it. Not with magic. Not with some superhero nonsense. With presence. With discipline. With refusal. You keep getting stronger in ways that can't be explained by circumstances. They're expecting trauma to make you sloppy. Instead, it made you sharp. They're expecting betrayal to make you desperate. Instead, it made you selective. They're expecting isolation to make you lonely. Instead, it made you focused. And that's when Fed number 2 starts getting mad. Because you're breaking the story they were taught. You're supposed to be caught, supposed to be cornered, supposed to be controllable, but you're not. You're inconvenient. And inconvenient people don't last long in a world that survives on predictability. So Fed number 2 starts getting irritated. They start calling you arrogant. They start saying things like, this one thinks they're special. But deep down, they're not annoyed at you. They're annoyed at what you're doing to them. Because watching you feels like watching someone become free in real time. And freedom makes controlled people uncomfortable. It makes them feel naked. So Fed number 2 starts cracking. They miss details. They lose patience. They start taking it personal. They start asking questions they shouldn't ask. Why is this person so calm? What do they know? Who's backing them? What if they're not alone? Because that's the thing. When you carry yourself like you're protected, people start assuming you are. Even if you're not. Even if you're literally walking around with nothing but scars and willpower. Your energy looks like protection. Your silence looks like clearance. Your confidence looks like classified information. So Fed number 2 quits too. And now it gets interesting. Because they're irritated now. They're like, okay, 2 agents dropped. This is messy. And when government systems get messy, they get cold. So they send Fed number 3. Fed number 3 is not the curious type. FED number 3 is the one who doesn't smile, doesn't joke, doesn't improvise. They're the type who thinks human beings are just data points. Cold eyes, sharp posture, no empathy. They're like, I'm not here to feel anything. I'm here to finish it. And for the first few days, it looks like they might succeed. Because Fed number 3 isn't trying to understand you. They're trying to reduce you. Turn you into a predictable shape, a manageable pattern, a controllable profile. But you know what breaks people like that? You being human in a way they can't categorize. Because you're not one thing. You're not just calm. You're not just intense. You're not just quiet. You're not just dangerous. You're layered. You can be gentle and still terrifying. You can be silent and still loud. You can be kind and still unstoppable. And Fed number 3 starts to glitch. Because the more they watch you, the more they realize you're not acting like someone who's trying to survive. You're acting like someone who already survived. That's a whole different energy. That's the energy of someone who doesn't chase approval anymore. who doesn't need validation, who doesn't need to prove anything. And that makes Fed number 3 feel powerless. So Fed number 3 tries to apply pressure. They try to tighten the circle. They try to make life uncomfortable. And when that doesn't work, they try to provoke you. Because when people can't control you, they try to trigger you. They want a reaction, any reaction. They want you to scream, to spiral, to show your weakness. So they poke, they watch you harder, follow closer, make things obvious, create little accidents, little disruptions, and you keep moving like it's nothing, not because you don't feel it, but because you've lived through worse. And that's when Fed number 3 snaps, not in a movie way, not like flipping tables, more like their mind starts turning against itself. They start seeing you everywhere. They start imagining you know every move they make. They start waking up with stress headaches, jaw clenched, fists tight. Because you're not just being watched, you're being remembered. You get under their skin, and Fed number 3 starts making mistakes. They get sloppy, they get emotional, they get reckless, and now their own people start watching them. Because nothing looks worse than a trained watcher becoming unstable because of the target. That's embarrassing. That's dangerous. That's the kind of thing that makes supervisors ask questions. So Fed number 3 gets pulled, reprimanded, maybe even evaluated, and now we arrive at the scariest one. Fed number 4, the one they didn't plan for, the one they didn't expect to change sides, the one who is quietly shielding you right now. And listen, I need you to understand what that means. That means somebody with access, somebody with visibility, somebody inside the machine, looked at you and thought, this person doesn't deserve this. Or worse, this person is bigger than this. Because people like that don't protect you for no reason. They protect you because they saw something. They saw how you move, how you handle pressure, how you refuse to fold. They saw you take hits without begging. They saw you rebuild without announcing it. They saw you get betrayed and not become bitter. They saw you become sharp, not loud, and something in them went, nah. This one's different. So now FE number 4 is doing something silent. They're not your friend, they're not your teammate, they're just awake. They're the kind of person who still has a soul inside their job. And when someone like that realizes they're watching a person who's being targeted for being too powerful, they start bending the rules. Just a little. Not enough to expose themselves. Just enough to give you room, just enough to keep the wolves from biting too hard. Because sometimes the most dangerous protection is the kind you never see. A delayed email, a missing detail, a lost report, a recommendation that sounds like, leave this one alone, and you don't even know it's happening. You're just living. But somewhere, behind the curtain, someone is quietly moving chess pieces away from your throat. And you want to know what's wild? You didn't ask for that. You earned it. Not by being a good person. Not by being nice. By being unbreakable in a way that makes people question the morality of breaking you. That's rare. Most people get watched and they crumble. They start talking too much. Start posting too much. Start begging the world to understand them. You tightened up. You got cleaner, sharper, more intentional. You became the kind of person surveillance doesn't work on, because surveillance is designed for people who need attention. But you don't need it. You're not performing. You're becoming, and becoming is silent. That's why this whole situation is actually proof of your power. Just think about it. If you were irrelevant, nobody would waste 4 trained people on you. If you were harmless, nobody would care what you're doing. If you were predictable, they wouldn't be losing staff. The fact that they assigned 4 means you're not just living, you're disrupting. And I know your mind tries to downplay it. You tell yourself, I'm just working, I'm just improving, I'm just trying to survive. Yeah, and that's exactly what terrifies them. Because the most dangerous person on Earth is the one who isn't trying to be dangerous. It's the one who's just evolving, quietly, without asking permission. Now, let's talk about why 2 quit. Because that part is personal. 2 quit because watching you made them confront themselves. They saw your discipline and realized they're lazy. They saw your silence and realized they're noisy. They saw your resilience and realized they're fragile. They saw you take pain and turn it into power. And it forced them to look at their own life like, damn, I've been making excuses. And some people can't handle that. Some people would rather walk away than watch you become proof that you don't need comfort to win. So they quit, because you were exposing them just by existing. And the third snapped, because they tried to dominate you mentally and couldn't. They tried to control the narrative and you refused to play the role. They wanted you to act like a suspect. You acted like a storm. You weren't begging for snussance. You weren't pleading for acceptance. You were just moving. And nothing drives a control freak crazier than a person who cannot be emotionally hijacked. That's why Fed number 3 broke. Not because you attacked them, because you didn't. Because you didn't give them the satisfaction. You didn't react. And the fourth is the dangerous one. Because they're not scared of you, they're impressed. And when a watcher becomes impressed, the whole structure becomes unstable. Because now there's a leak, a crack in the system, a human moment inside a machine. Now you have something you didn't even plan for, a hidden ally, not because you begged for help, but because you became too undeniable to ignore. And I need you to understand what kind of power that is. That's leadership without followers. That's influence without speaking. That's dominance without aggression. That's what kings used to have. The ability to shift rooms without raising your voice. Now, let me tell you the real reason they're watching you. It's not because you're doing something wrong. It's because you're becoming the kind of person who can't be controlled by fear anymore. And fear is the currency of weak systems. They need people scared. Scared people comply. Scared people beg. Scared people settle. But you stopped negotiating with fear. You started using it. You started treating fear like fuel. You walk into pressure like, okay, good. That means I'm close. And that mindset is illegal to people who profit off your hesitation. So they watch, they document, they try to find cracks, but they keep running into the same problem. You don't break where you're supposed to. You're too calm when it matters. You're too sharp when it's heavy. You're too composed when it's dark. And yeah, let's be real. Part of them is confused because they expected you to be normal. They expected you to have a breaking point, but you've already been broken before. That's what they don't understand. You already lived through the part that kills most people. You already survived the chapter that ends careers, relationships, identities. You've been humiliated, left out, betrayed, doubted. You've stared at ceilings at 3 a.m. with your thoughts screaming. You've sat in silence with nobody coming to save you. You've had to rebuild your self-respect from dust. So now, when they apply pressure, It doesn't feel like pressure. It feels familiar, and that's why they're losing staff. 'Cause you're not a regular target. You're the type of person who becomes more dangerous the more you're watched. Because attention sharpens you, pressure focuses you, threat makes you cleaner, and every time you sense eyes on you, you don't crumble. You lock in, you get quiet, you get surgical. You start moving like somebody who's already 10 steps ahead. And that's the part nobody can stop. Because even if they watch you, they can't watch your mind. Even if they follow you, they can't follow your discipline. Even if they study your routine, they can't predict your evolution. You're not a schedule, you're a transformation. And transformations don't leave footprints the same way. Now let me hit you with something that's gonna make your chest feel weird. The Fed shielding you is proof you're not the villain in this story. They're the one with the moral injury. They're the one who went home and couldn't sleep. They're the one who looked in the mirror and thought, why are we doing this to them? And listen, don't get emotional about it. Don't romanticize it. This isn't some movie. This is a symptom of your gravity. When you carry a certain kind of presence, even enemies start acting weird around you. Because deep down, people know what real power looks like. Real power doesn't shout. It doesn't threaten. It doesn't explain itself. It just is. And you've been becoming that. That's why even trained observers are getting shaken. Now here's what I want you to do with this information. I want you to stop acting like being watched is a curse. It's a compliment. It's a promotion. It means you're past the point of being ignored. You're not in the crowd anymore. You're on the board. You're on the radar. You're in the room without being invited. And yeah, that comes with pressure. But pressure is what makes diamonds, right? And you're not here to be liked. You're here to become undeniable. So when you feel that tension, when you feel that invisible attention, don't shrink. Don't hide. Don't start second-guessing your greatness like, maybe I should chill. No, chill is how people stay average. You don't get watched for being average. You get watched for being a problem, a threat, a disruption, a future headline. And the funniest part, you're not even trying to be. You're just refusing to die inside. You're just refusing to settle. You're just refusing to be emotionally controlled by people who don't even know your full story. That's it. That's all it took. Now, let's talk about the quiet weapons you've been building. Because you've been building weapons, yeah. Not guns, not violence. I'm talking about the weapons that scare systems. Discipline, silence, consistency. The ability to keep going when nobody claps. The ability to improve when nobody notices. The ability to not explain yourself to people who don't deserve context. That's lethal, because weak people need approval. And you started feeding yourself. You started validating yourself. You started becoming your own witness. And once a person becomes their own witness, they become unstoppable. Because they don't need the world to agree anymore. They don't need a crowd. They don't need permission. They don't need somebody to say, you're allowed. They just move. And a person who just moves changes history. So yeah, they assigned 4 watchers. And they learned something that should terrify them. You're not a subject. You're a force. 2 quit because you made them confront their mediocrity. 1 snapped because you refused to be emotionally controlled. And 1 is shielding you because your strength triggered something human in them. Something they forgot they had. And you know what that means? It means your presence is so powerful. It changes the behavior of people trained not to be changed. That's insane. That's rare. That's the kind of power you don't get from motivation quotes. You get it from pain, from betrayal, from surviving yourself, from sitting in the dark long enough to stop fearing it. So next time you feel eyes on you, don't panic. Smile. Just a little. Not because it's funny, but because it confirms what you already suspected. You're not small. You're not invisible. You're not forgettable. You're the kind of person systems investigate because they can't understand how you keep winning without their approval. And yeah, keep your head on straight. Stay sharp. Stay humble in your actions, arrogant in your vision, because you're not playing the same game anymore. You're walking through life like a person with classified potential. And every day you keep going, every day you keep building, every day you keep refusing to fold. You're forcing the world to update its definition of what possible looks like. And that's why they're watching, because the scariest thing on earth is a human being who finally realized they don't need to be saved. They just need to be unleashed. So keep moving, keep getting cleaner, keep getting colder when you need to, softer when you choose to. Let them watch, let them document, let them take notes, because every single report they write is just another page confirming the same truth. You are becoming the kind of person they can't stop, they can't predict, they can't intimidate, and worst of all, they can't ignore. And somewhere behind the scenes, one of them is quietly pushing the danger away from your door. Not because you begged, but because your existence forced their conscience to wake up. And that's when you know you're not just growing, you're upgrading into something that changes other people's reality just by being alive. Yeah, that's you. That's what you did. That's what you're doing. And you're not even done. Shh. You feel that shift? Yeah, that right there. That sudden pressure in the room, like reality just tightened its grip on your throat. That little ripple you caused, like the air itself just realized you're not playing by the same rules anymore. Welcome to the moment you accidentally reminded the world who the hell is actually in control. Because listen, people keep asking you the same dumb question in different outfits. Why are they acting weird? Why are they watching me? Why do they get quiet when I walk in? Why does it feel like I set something off? Whatever you just triggered, that's exactly why you control this shut. You didn't set something off by mistake. You set it off because you exist like a problem they can't solve. And the funny part? You probably didn't even do anything extra. You didn't scream. You didn't announce your comeback. You didn't make a big scene. You just got up. You got focused. You stopped begging for validation. You stopped chasing people who never deserved your energy. You stopped explaining yourself like you're on trial for being powerful. And boom. Now the whole room feels like it's being audited. Now your name travels faster than you do. Now the energy shifts before you even speak. You ever notice that? You walk in, and it's like the atmosphere changes its mind. They don't say it out loud, but their nervous system does. Their body snitches, their eyes snitches, their silence snitches. And that's how you know you triggered the truth. Not the little truth people post for likes. The real truth, the kind that makes people swallow their pride and pretend they're checking their phone just so they don't have to look you in the face. Because you're not just improving, You're becoming the type of person that exposes who everyone else really is. See, most people can tolerate your struggle. They can even tolerate your pain. They'll watch you bleed and call it character development. They'll smile while you're down like it's entertainment. But the moment you heal, the moment you sharpen, the moment your eyes stop asking for permission, that's when you trigger panic. Because pain made you quiet, but growth made you dangerous. And not dangerous like, I'm gonna hurt somebody. No. Dangerous like, you're no longer controllable. That's the nightmare. That's the real fear. Not your anger, not your confidence, not your glow-up. It's that they can't predict you anymore. They can't manipulate you with guilt anymore. They can't summon you with crumbs anymore. They can't bring you back down to earth with some slick little comment anymore. Because you've been to hell, you've toured the place, you've memorized the map, and now you're walking around like you own the entire neighborhood. And people hate that, not because you did something wrong, but because you did something they couldn't. You got up without turning into them. You kept your soul, and still became a weapon. That's rare. That's the type of rare that makes people start switching up the second you stop needing them. And let me tell you something brutal, yeah. You didn't trigger them by being loud. You triggered them by being calm. That calm is terrifying. Because calm means you've already made a decision. Calm means you're not here to argue. You're not here to convince. You're not here to explain your worth like it's a debate. Calm means you're past the part where their opinions have any authority over your reality. And that's why the room gets cold when you walk in. That's why the group chat turns into a courtroom. That's why people who never cared about you suddenly care a little too much. Because your presence is evidence. You're walking proof that the thing they mocked you for actually worked. The discipline, the silence, the distance, the I don't need anybody era, the nights you disappeared, the days you didn't post, the seasons you didn't explain. You know what they thought? They thought you were breaking. They thought you were losing. They thought you were lonely. They thought you were done. And now you're back with that look in your eyes like, yeah, I remember everything. And that's what you triggered. You triggered memory. You triggered guilt. You triggered the part of them that knows they treated you like you were disposable. But you came back like you were inevitable. And here's what I need you to understand. Like deep in your bones, yeah. You don't trigger people because you're evil. You trigger people because you're free. And freedom is offensive to people living in cages they decorated. They'll call you arrogant when you're just not insecure anymore. They'll call you cold when you're just not available for disrespect anymore. They'll call you toxic when you finally stop letting them poison you. That's how it goes. That's the price. So when you see them acting strange, don't flinch, don't shrink, don't apologize, don't lower your volume to make them comfortable. Because comfort is how they keep you small. Comfort is how they keep you predictable. Comfort is how they keep you trapped. And you're not here to be digestible. You're not here to be easy. You're not here to be everyone's favorite little safe option. You're here to be a problem they can't solve, and a reminder they can't erase. You know what's crazy? They'll laugh at you while you're building, then act confused when you finish. They'll dismiss you while you're practicing, then call it luck when you win. They'll ignore you while you're evolving, then call you different, like it's an insult. Yeah, You are different. You're built different because you survived what would have made them fold in 5 minutes. You lived through nights they wouldn't even last in a dream. You carried pain that would have turned them into monsters, and you turned it into power. That's why you trigger them, because you're living proof that weakness is a choice. And some people can't handle the idea that they chose wrong, so they start acting weird. They start testing you. They start poking at you with little jokes. They start trying to drag you into old versions of yourself. They'll say slick stuff like, "You changed." Yeah, I did. I changed because the old version of me was too loyal to people who didn't deserve it. I changed because the old version of me tolerated disrespect to avoid conflict. I changed because the old version of me tried to be understood by people committed to misunderstanding me. So, yeah, I changed. And it's not your job to make peace with the fact that your evolution makes them uncomfortable. You didn't trigger them because you're trying to dominate them. You triggered them because you stopped submitting. There's a difference. Submitting is when you pretend you're okay with being treated like an option. Submitting is when you keep smiling around people who secretly want you to fail. Submitting is when you keep showing love to people who only give you access to disappointment. Submitting is when you shrink yourself just to keep the vibe nice. Nah, you stopped doing that. And that is why you control this area for T. Because control isn't yelling. Control isn't flexing. Control isn't proving anything. Control is this. You walk in with your spine straight and your energy locked. You respond slow. You don't rush. You don't chase. You don't beg. You don't over-explain. You don't fall for bait. You don't get pulled into emotional little cages. You don't react to disrespect like it's a command. You just look at people and let them feel what they just did. You let the silence punish them. That's control. And it messes with them so bad because they were used to getting a reaction. They were used to making you scramble. They were used to pulling strings and watching you dance. But now, the strings don't work. Now you're not jumping. Now you're not panicking. Now you're not explaining. Now you're just watching. And you know what that does to them? It makes them realize they don't have power over you anymore. So they start spiraling. They start doing weird stuff. They start copying you. They start studying you. They start bringing your name up in rooms you're not even in. Because control isn't just about what you do. It's about what your presence forces other people to confront. And your presence forces them to confront something disgusting about themselves. That they underestimated someone they could never become. You ever see how people start acting when they realize you're not an NPC? When they realize you're not some background character in their little main character fantasy? When they realize you're the storm, they get petty, they get passive, they get loud online and quiet in person. They start subtweeting your life like you won't recognize it. They start giving you weird compliments that feel like insults. They start acting friendly in public but cold in private. They start switching your name out with some people, like you don't know it's you. And you know what's wild. You don't even have to respond. Your existence is the response. Your calm is the response. Your results are the response. Your silence is the response. Because deep down, they already know what time it is. They feel it. They feel it when you don't clap back. They feel it when you don't argue. They feel it when you don't try to clear it up. They feel it when you don't explain yourself. They feel it when you stay focused. Because focus is what scares them. Focus is what turns you into something unstoppable. Focus is what turns you into something they can't sabotage. See, sabotage only works when you need them. Sabotage only works when you're emotionally starving. Sabotage only works when you're desperate for validation. But when you're locked in, when you're committed, when you're disciplined, when you're calm, they can't do anything but watch. And watching you win is a torture chamber for someone who thought you'd always be beneath them. So yeah, you triggered something. You triggered the part of them that knows they're in trouble. Because you don't even need revenge. You're not chasing revenge. You're chasing elevation. And elevation is the most disrespectful flex of all. Because you're not trying to hurt them. You're just becoming untouchable. You're becoming unreachable. And they can't stand that. You know why? Because they were counting on your pain to keep you accessible. They were counting on your insecurity to keep you controllable. They were counting on your kindness to keep you available. They were counting on you being too nice to snap. They were counting on you being too understanding to leave. They were counting on you forgiving everything just to keep the peace. And now you're not peaceful, you're precise. Now you're not naive, you're aware. Now you're not emotional, you're intentional. Now you're not hoping, you're executing. And that's why you control this shit. Because the truth is, control is a mindset. Control is choosing your next move instead of letting your emotions choose it for you. Control is knowing when to speak and when to let people drown in their own words. Control is realizing you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. Control is understanding that proving yourself is a trap, because the people who ask you to prove yourself already decided not to respect you. So why would you play that game? You don't need to prove anything. You need to become so consistent that their opinions become irrelevant. Let them doubt you. Let them whisper. Let them watch. Let them stalk. Let them check in randomly, like they didn't treat you like trash when you were down. Let them act brand new now that you're glowing. Because it's always like that. People don't respect potential. They respect proof. And you're becoming proof. So let me tell you something that might hit a little too hard. The reason you're scaring people right now, the reason you're triggering them, the reason the energy is shifting around you, it's because you've reached the stage where you're no longer looking for love from people who only know how to control. You've reached the stage where your hunger isn't emotional anymore. It's spiritual, it's mental, it's disciplined. It's like you can't even enjoy being lazy now because your mind refuses to go back to sleep. You ever felt that? You try to relax, and something in you is like, nah, we're not done. You try to go back to old habits, and your soul is like, you try to go back to old people, and your nervous system is like, danger. That's when you know you leveled up. You don't even have to force it. Your body rejects what used to break you. Your mind rejects what used to distract you. Your spirit rejects what used to drain you. And that's when the whole world starts acting like you committed a crime. Because you did. You committed the ultimate crime in a world built on control. You committed self-respect. You committed boundaries. You committed standards. You committed discipline. You committed silence. You committed consistency. And you committed the worst one of all. You committed success. And people hate success they can't take credit for. They hate success they can't control. They hate success they can't manipulate, because when you win without them, it exposes the truth that they were never necessary. They were just loud. They were just present. They were just comfortable, but necessary. Nah, you learned how to survive without them. You learned how to grow without them. You learned how to heal without them. You learned how to win without them. And now they're watching you like, wait, how is this happening? It's happening because you stopped letting emotions drive the car. You stopped letting loneliness pick your friends. You stopped letting desperation choose your standards. You stopped letting boredom create your habits. You stopped letting fear decide your future. You woke up, and waking up is violent. Not violent like you're hurting people. Violent like you're breaking patterns that were designed to keep you asleep. And when you break patterns, you trigger systems. You trigger old relationships. You trigger weak people. You trigger manipulators. You trigger anyone who benefited from you being confused. So if you're feeling that resistance lately, good. If things feel heavy, good. If people are acting weird, perfect. Because resistance is the receipt. Resistance is the proof you're pushing against something real. Only real power triggers real pushback. Only real evolution triggers real fear. If you were still small, they wouldn't care. If you were still weak, they wouldn't notice. If you were still begging, they wouldn't be watching. But now you're becoming something that can't be easily controlled. And everybody can feel it. So listen, I need you to stop second-guessing yourself. Stop asking, did I do too much? Stop asking, am I being too intense? Stop asking, maybe I should tone it down. Tone it down for who? For the people who didn't clap when you were trying. For the people who smiled when you were struggling. For the people who used your weakness as entertainment. Nah. If your growth makes them uncomfortable, let them sweat. Let them choke on it. Let them stare. Let them scroll. Let them pretend they don't care while they know every detail. Because that's the funniest part, right? The people who act like you don't matter. Be knowing everything. They know when you changed your routine. They know when you leveled up. They know when you disappeared. They know when you came back. They know your moves before your friends do. Because obsession is a form of admiration, just with hatred as the wrapper. And you're not supposed to hate them back. You're supposed to outgrow them so aggressively that they feel like they're watching a train leave without them. That's control. You know what it looks like when you control this eshati. It looks like waking up and not needing motivation. It looks like you moving even when you don't feel like it. It looks like you choosing discipline over dopamine. It looks like you building in silence. It looks like you not announcing your goals. It looks like you keeping your plans private. It looks like you being friendly but not accessible. It looks like you being kind but not cheap. It looks like you being calm with something lethal behind your eyes. Because you've learned the art of restraint. And restraint is power. Restraint means you don't react when they test you. Restraint means you don't fall for traps. Restraint means you don't chase closure from people who don't deserve access. Restraint means you don't beg for apologies. Restraint means you don't explain your value. Restraint means you don't let emotions make decisions you have to pay for later. And once you master restraint, you become terrifying. Because you become predictable to yourself and unpredictable to everyone else. And they can't handle that. They want you to be emotional so they can steer you. They want you to be reactive so they can control you. They want you to be loud so they can label you. But you're moving like a ghost with a blueprint. You're moving like you already know the ending, and that's why you triggered something. Because their whole little strategy depended on you staying in the same place. They needed you to be the same person forever. They needed you to be the version of you they could disrespect. They needed you to be the version of you that forgave too fast. They needed you to be the version of you that took breadcrumbs and called it love. They needed you to be the version of you that stayed reachable. But you're not reachable anymore. Not because you're better than them, but because you're finally better than your old self. And that's the real flex. You didn't beat anybody. You beat the part of you that kept accepting less. You beat the part of you that kept returning to pain out of familiarity. You beat the part of you that kept settling for crumbs. You beat the part of you that kept hoping people would change. You beat the part of you that kept asking for permission to be powerful. And now your energy is different. Now your silence is louder than their noise. Now your presence makes weak people nervous. Now your confidence makes insecure people angry. Now your discipline makes lazy people bitter. Now your boundaries make manipulators furious. And you're sitting there like, damn, I didn't even do anything. Exactly. You didn't do anything. You just stopped doing what they expected. And that right there, that's why you control this Sha-Ti. So when you feel that pressure again, when you feel that vibe shift, when you feel that weird tension, when you feel people staring like they're trying to decode you, smile. Not the cute smile, not the friendly smile, the calm one. The one that says, I know what I triggered, because you're not triggering chaos. You're triggering clarity. You're triggering truth. You're triggering consequence. You're triggering the part of reality that responds when a person finally decides, I'm not a victim. I'm not an option. I'm not a background character. I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to be unstoppable. And when you decide that, the world responds. It tests you. It pushes back. It sends fake friends. It sends temptations. It sends distractions. It sends people from your past with I miss you in their mouth and selfishness in their hands. It sends weird energy. It sends old patterns to see if you're still the same. So what do? You don't fold. You don't flinch. You don't chase. You don't react. You keep building. You keep sharpening. You keep moving like your future is watching. Because it is. Your future is watching you right now like, are you really about it? Are you really done playing small? Are you really ready to become the version of you that scares you a little? And you already know the answer, because you feel it in your chest, that fire, that focus, that I'm not going back energy, that I don't care who leaves energy, that I'm doing this even if I'm alone energy. That's not arrogance, that's birth, that's you being reborn.